wedding photography for me has never been about pretty images only. It's more about telling the story of two lovers, whoever they are, however they look, whatever they're wearing. I want to make sure that these people know they belong in front of the camera.
You're listening to the Shoot Your Shot podcast with Lindsay and Tim.
Welcome back to the Shoot Your Shot podcast. My name is Tim.
Hi, everybody. I'm Lindsay.
We are the community-driven podcast for you, wedding photographers, portrait photographers from around the world. And today we have a very special guest, but you know that. You clicked the link, you saw the thumbnail. Martina Lanotte. Welcome to the show, Martina.
Hi, Martina.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for inviting me.
You're coming to us from Copenhagen. Is that correct?
Yes.
Very
Yes.
good. What's the day look like in Copenhagen right now?
Well, it's January, it's Scandinavia, the weather is miserable, and ask me in June. Maybe it's
Okay.
better.
We'll chat in June.
Yes.
Perfect.
Yes.
I mean, you're an incredible wedding photographer based in Copenhagen, but you're Italian by
Yes.
blood. And
Yes.
but just before the show started, you told us that your last name Lanotte means the night.
Yes, that is
Very
true. I was
cool.
Which is
bullied
probably-
a lot when I was a child, but I'm stronger now. Now it's cool.
Because it was like literal, I guess. I'm like, oh yeah, well nobody
Yeah.
would know what that means, but yes, they all would because they're all Italian.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you feel
Yes.
like that inspires a lot of your wardrobe? The night wearing that you're wearing all black right now.
There must be a connection there, but also my wardrobe is because I'm too lazy to choose colors, so
Got
one
it.
color fits all. Yes.
Perfect.
It's a good look. Honestly, we're gonna get into it, I'm sure, more in this episode, but your aesthetic, your whole look, everything, your whole vibe, I'm sure attracts a lot of your clients, but you just look incredibly cool all the time. So
Thank you.
I feel like your last name adds a little bit of mystery, a little bit of intrigue, which
Totally.
I love.
Yeah. Totally.
And then just like who you are as a person comes through, and people are like, "Damn, I'm so uncool in comparison."
Yeah.
But let's get into it, Martina. Could you, for people who maybe aren't familiar with you, who haven't met you before, Tim and I had the pleasure of meeting you in Italy last year, I think, for the
Yep.
first time.
Correct.
We saw you on the stage at Way Up North. I became obsessed with you. I'm now your biggest fan. I might have a crush on you.
Thanks.
It's okay. My husband's aware of it. But
Okay.
for those of you for those of our listeners who maybe haven't fallen in love with you quite yet, can you give everybody like a little bit of a background on who you are? What's your life been like up until this point? A few years in.
All right. So my name is Martina. My pronouns are she, they, meaning that you can use both and I will not get offended. And I am a queer photographer specialized in queer elopements. I'm Italian, but I live in Copenhagen, Denmark. And I started with wedding photography when I was still a student in Italy, because random fact, I have a master in linguistics. And during those years, I had a student job. I was working with a local wedding photographer, and it was wild. I don't know how Italians do it, because they start at 6 a.m., they finish at 2 a.m. Like,
Wow.
I could never do that.
No, that's
No,
wild.
that's criminal.
But anyway, then I moved to Denmark shortly after I finished my education, because I wanted to teach Italian abroad. And while I was looking for jobs in that field, I still needed to pay the bills. So I started working in photography again as assistant, a second shooter, to all sorts of photographers, corporate, product, fashion, portrait, food. I've done everything. And I loved every second of it. I was like, you know what? Fuck linguistics. I love this. This is what I want to do.
Amazing.
And then I did my first wedding, and it was wild. It was chaotic. It was high pressure. And I loved it. I loved the adrenaline. I loved the challenge of never missing a moment. I loved the fact that if you go to be at the wrong time, you're fucked. I love that. So long story
That's
short,
so funny. That's like the thing so many people are terrified of. You're like, that's my shit right there. I
Yeah.
love
Yeah,
I love
right.
the
The
pressure
adrenaline,
and
the
the
rush.
horrors.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like, I literally have to ask every time, nothing has to happen right now. Please, I have to be.
We need to stop.
Speaking of asking and praying for things, we have a higher power on this show. We forgot to
yes.
roll the magic 8 ball. Lindsay, should we roll the magic 8 ball here
Okay.
first? If we forget, our listeners get really pissed off, so we should probably do that.
We asked the magic 8 ball a question. Sometimes this screen back here works. Okay? Sometimes it doesn't. We don't make the rules. The magic 8 ball does.
Let's see. It's black, so
it is.
Yeah.
It is. So I think it's going to work for us. But Martina, do you have a question that's on your heart? It has to be a yes or no. Okay. So
Sadly.
we can't give you really deep
No
responses.
context.
So please don't ask us about your future, your love life, anything, because we can't help you there. But if you have a yes or a no.
okay. Okay, I'm gonna be very selfish here.
Please.
Okay, please. As you
So
should
the
be.
question is tomorrow, is the sun going to shine in Copenhagen? Please say
I
yes.
truly hope that it does. Okay. I'm going to shake this thing up. And honestly, if we get an answer we don't want, I'm just going to shake it again. But ask again later.
Okay, we'll ask again later.
You know what? We'll
In
pick this
June.
up again.
We'll just,
Yes, it's like literally like pick this up in
Okay, fair
in
enough.
4 months.
Groundhog Day.
Your last name is very fitting for a Scandinavian country, I'm sure, because it is literally the night
It is,
so
yes,
much
yes.
of the day. Okay, so
Back to your career.
back to your career.
Yes.
You
So you
mentioned-
started a bunch of different things.
Yeah.
You
Yes.
said linguistics is maybe not my thing. Did you finish your degree? Were you like, fuck this?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah, yeah.
absolutely
I
out?
finished my education.
Oh, good.
Okay, good for you.
Nice.
I mean, no judgment either way. I was forced to finish my degree, even though I really didn't want to because my parents worked at university. So I would have been like,
Oh.
oh, good for you. You got out of it. So you finished it, and then what? How did you get going? How did you become?
I wanted to visit Scandinavia, but not just for a holiday. Because
Yeah.
I thought 5 days don't make sense to me. I just want to move there. So I applied for an internship, a 3 months internship at the Italian embassy.
Okay.
And I came here for 3 months, and that was supposed to be it. But it was June, July, and August, the best summer of the past 30 years, they told me. So, Southern Italian was strict. And I thought, I like this country. The sun sets at 11 p.m. Wow, I love it. I'm going to stay here.
Yeah.
And then it started snowing in October. So, yeah.
It's a yin and a yang. You cannot have it all the time. We get some really beautiful summers here, and we get fairly similar to Copenhagen, really, aside from the 11 p.m. sunsets. We don't get those really ever.
No.
But we have the sun setting at like 5 p.m. right now, which is rough.
It's tough.
We understand that.
We understand.
And actually, it does inform a lot of our work. The sun changing and
Right.
the times of year and the seasons, which I really love. And you can actually see coming through in your work, which I also really love. So let's talk about your work. How has it evolved from, you were doing food photography. You decide, okay, I'm going to go and get an internship. Then what? You get an internship and you just say, I'm an international photographer now.
Well, I said I tried every kind of photography, and the one that I disliked the most was product, because there was no interaction. But then again, I'm a wedding photographer, so I like interactions.
Yes.
Well, I did work a lot, and it was really tough because competition is high. It's a capital in Europe, and there are people from all over the world. And I had no savings, no experience. I didn't speak the language. I still don't speak the language. And I didn't know anyone, so it was really tough to make it. But I'm here, so there must be something that I did right. And but then I specialized. I just niched into weddings because it was my favorite thing to do. I started with weddings like most of us, because it pays well. But then I loved it, and I was craving weddings. And slowly I started abandoning all the other things that I was doing. And until COVID, up until COVID, I was only doing weddings and food because I'm a foodie,
Yes.
Why not?
You're Italian.
And then
it's in your blood.
Yes. Like I always say, my love language is feeding people with carbs.
It's a really
So,
respectable. I'm still waiting on your recipe for croissants, though. I'm probably going to screw it up, but I really
I'm gonna
need
send
it.
you a link. Yes. 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 And then you have to make it.
I know. That's the hard part. That's okay. I think I could do it. I feel at least reasonably confident that I could
Yes. Yeah.
fumble
Anybody
my way
can do
through.
it. You just need to put time into it. You know.
Yes,
It's
I'm
fine.
good at following direction generally.
Yeah.
When you said you niche down, what do you mean by that? You niche down into what specifically in terms of wedding photography?
No, up until COVID, I was saying that I was only doing weddings and food. And
I see.
then with
Okay.
COVID, restaurants had all sorts of problems, so food was not on the table anymore.
Gone.
And then I
Yep.
was like, okay, weddings. But what kind of weddings? What kind
Right.
of people? What kind of clientele and all of that? And then I just started narrowing it down. And today I'm almost exclusively shooting elopements in Copenhagen of mostly queer people. So that it's the nichest of the niches, I think.
It's a niche on a niche on a niche, but it's
For
a
sure.
really good
Yeah,
one.
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Because there are so many people traveling to Copenhagen to get married. It is the Las Vegas of Europe, they say.
Is that true? I had no idea.
Prettier, sort of.
Okay. Oh, wow.
Oh my gosh, I love that. The Las Vegas of Europe. Yeah, it's a slightly prettier, a
Yeah.
little bit less of a
Yes.
wasteland. I love Las Vegas, but it's a wasteland.
Yes.
Oh, that's really cool. I didn't know that. That makes a lot of sense because your portfolio is filled with like beautiful elopements,
Yeah.
which we unfortunately are not blessed with quite as many elopements in
Yeah.
this area. Tim and I actually do a fair amount of elopements, but we have to travel for them.
Yeah.
Yeah, of course.
Even like within our province, but we have to
Go to like the most pretty part. Most of our province is farmland and houses and buildings that were built in the last 100 years versus Copenhagen, most of Europe, all like the doors are like 1,000 years old. in
Yeah, your
country,
doors are
so-
older than all of our
Yeah.
cities.
So
You know, the funny thing, because I'm Italian, when I moved to Copenhagen, I saw this building from the 1700s and I was
Good
like,
grief.
oh, this is new.
how
This is
modern.
very modern.
This is very
How
modern.
mid-century. Very
That's
cool.
so funny. I love that. Okay, so let's talk more about sort of your journey to becoming this elopement specialist, but also like the photographer that is really like the go-to, it seems like, for queer couples. I am going to preface this whole conversation
Yes.
for everybody listening by saying that it's possible we're going to fumble and we're going to mess some things up. So please cut us all some slack, all three of us in this conversation, but also all of yourselves. One of the things that I personally have learned over the last number of years is I'd rather have conversations that are imperfect than not having them at all for fear of
Yes.
fucking up and saying the wrong thing
Totally.
or so we'll do our best. Tim and I will
Yeah.
always do our best, and
Yeah,
Martina,
absolutely.
your best will be better than all of ours. But I would love to hear about how you became this sort of go-to person, this expert in your field for queer couples. How have queer couples found you? How have you become like
The go-to.
the person
Yeah.
for queer weddings?
Well, being queer helps, of course, because
Valid,
I know
valid.
True.
what the community wants. I know what the community needs. And so I started thinking, what would I want if I was to get married? What kind of photographer would I want? What would I like to see on their website?
Right.
So that's how I started this journey. And, today I still think that wedding photography for me has never been about pretty images only. It's more about telling the story of two lovers, whoever they are, however they look, whatever they're wearing. And I want to make sure that these people know they belong in front of the camera, regardless of the gender, orientation, body type, age, culture. We're not just talking about queer community here. We're talking
Yeah.
about everyone. Because I think that people on their wedding day shouldn't feel like they have to fit in a box for you. They shouldn't be worthy of your work. They should feel like, fuck, I'm marrying the person of my life, the love of my life. I'm happy. And this is the feeling I want to remember when I look at my wedding photos. So I work really hard to tell people who go to my website for them to feel this, to feel like, oh, here I can be whoever I want. I can be myself. Nobody's judging me. Nobody's posing me. There's no champagne towers, and all of that. I can be me. So
Yeah.
I think that is what helps a lot. Yeah.
I love that. I think, you touched on a really good point that you're not just the photographer for queer couples. Like, your portfolio is the definition of diverse.
Yes.
It is what I think, regardless of if that was your niche or not, all of us should try to embody more of, myself included, in our portfolios as a whole. I wish that when we looked at everyone's wedding portfolio or portfolio of any kind, that there was more diversity there. How do you, this is maybe jumping around a little bit, and that's kind of just like the whole MO of this entire podcast is like, I always joke, like, I digress. So your portfolio is so beautiful and so consistent. And
Thank you.
One of the things that I find, I go to a lot of conferences, we listen to podcasts, and we hear photography educators talking about, like, you should only show the most attractive clients. You should only show clients that fit a mold or a stereotype. First of all, what I will say is all of your clients look beautiful. All of your clients look like, that's what our goal as photographers is, always to make people feel like that is the most beautiful they have ever felt on their wedding day. They're like, wow, I look incredible, handsome, beautiful, whatever the terminology is they're feeling, that they feel like, damn, I looked good. And Martina did that. So whether they fit into the, like, Vogue or Elle magazine sort of stereotype of what typical beauty standards are or not, you have made them look beautiful. So I guess my question here would be, what would you say to the photographer educators and the photographers that believe that our portfolios have to be
curated and
and
fit into a
homogenous
box
in order for clients to know, what's our style? How do I know that that's the photographer for me?
Well, it depends. What are you curating? People's beauty standards, style? What are we talking about? Because if it's just how people look, you do you, but that's definitely not gonna be me. And then on the other hand, there are a lot of people that ask me, oh, your portfolio is this and that. Where do I find people that don't look like models? Like, seriously? Outside, in the street, at the
Just
shop,
the world.
anywhere.
The entire
Just
world.
outside. Yes, that is 99% of the population.
Yeah.
Because let's be honest, I don't believe that every wedding couple looks like models. So we are building this fake scenario that does not exist in reality.
Yeah.
So I don't think the challenge is in finding these people, but in having the courage to show them in your portfolio. Because, as you say, people say that we should be intentional in your work, that it should be very curated. And, I've done it too. I also been thinking every now and then, oh, this couple is not cool enough for my social media. But, are we really talking about that? Is this the kind of world we want to live in? And I'm going to say, when you work with a broader range of people, you show your audience something that is far more important. You show them that you care about something else than just shallow beauty. You show them real love stories that they can actually see themselves in, stories that resonate with them. And that is what builds trust. Because if I'm not pretty enough for the standards, I'm not gonna call you Vogue photographer because you only post those people. I'm not gonna feel good enough.
No.
So,
and then I think it does, like, I have seen it even in my own clients where I feel like, oh, I've not done a good job here. One of the first ways that I can tell that I haven't done a good job is when someone reached out years ago and said that they're a queer couple and they're wondering if I shoot queer weddings, if I'm even willing.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, fuck. I've really screwed this up
Drop
here.
the ball if it's not
you even
showing
have
on
to
your
ask,
portfolio. Yeah.
It's crazy.
Yeah, right?
And for them to have to go out on a limb, and we live in what I would say, it's getting scarier these days,
Yes.
but we live in a fairly liberal area, I would say. We live in like
For
now.
now.
Yeah.
We live in like a quasi California kind of vibe. If you're just to give you a picture of like what I would say our general demographic is like, yes, the scary side of that is definitely getting darker, which we will, I'm sure, touch on at some point through this. But and also maybe what's going on in the world shows us why this conversation that we're having is even more important now. And will continue to be incredibly important over the next number of years. But one of the things that I realize is that it really is on me as the photographer, the one putting the website together, the Instagram, all of this, the messaging, for me to put it out there, like, you're safe here, but you're not just safe here. I'm going to do a really good job for you, regardless of what you look like, regardless of who you're in love with, all of these things. So what have I done wrong? And then it takes a step back of like, I thought I did a pretty good job of this. And now I'm looking at my website and I'm like, if I was this person, I'd be feeling somewhat vulnerable here having to ask this question. So what would you say are some things that people can do to show representation, or not even to show representation, but to make it really abundantly clear, I'm a photographer for everyone, and truly mean that, and not in the, sort of rainbow washed, like capitalism that like banks and shit do. Tim and I were talking about this, how like banks will like sponsor the Pride Parade. We're like, yeah, but what are you doing?
The Pride Parade is like a commercialized like capitalist parade these days. Like, it used to be something
they
really
just get a lot of eyes on it
and very like unique, and I think it scared a lot of people for a long time. And then as more people became more open and aware of human beings that are different and diverse, capitalism jumped right on in there and was like the first person to like throw money at it to make sure that they were seen as like an ally. But it just became this totally commercialized, weird Las Vegas light parade show that doesn't feel authentic anymore. So,
and I mean, there is a variation of that happening in the wedding industry, right? Where people are like, oh, the queer market exists, I should probably try to capitalize
tap
on
into that, right?
So then they they shoot one queer wedding, or they do one queer elopement. They do hashtag love is love, and they're like, sick, I've done it. What would you say to photographers that are like looking at their own work right now with an honest lens and saying, I've not done a good job here. I have not shown body types. I've not shown all skin colors. I have not shown all different types of humans. What would you say to them to try to encourage them to do something different? And what would some tangible things be that they could do differently?
Wow.
It's a lot to unpack.
I know it's a lot. It's a lot. You're like, I have an entire course on this.
Solve the whole industry for us, please, Martina.
I have an entire course. You can go. So the first thing I'm going to tell people is that Martina does have a guide. You can go and purchase it.
Yes.
It's available. The link is in our description of the episode. So you should just go do that. But
for sure,
if you're going to give us some tidbits, some helpful suggestions,
snacks,
like what could we do? Where do we start?
Yeah, where do we start? Well, as you heard me saying, love is love is bullshit. And not because of the hashtag itself, because the message is positive.
Sure.
The problem comes when we think that love is the only thing that we need to do to be inclusive. Because if that is the extent of your effort, I have bad news for you. Like, how long does it take you to post a photo of a gay couple, hashtag love is love? 5 minutes, 7 minutes, 15 minutes? And you think that that alone is going to convince the queer community that you're genuinely inclusive? It is too easy. And as you say about pride and tokenism and companies, we see through it. Yeah. So, queer people are not coming running to you just because you use the hashtag. Yeah. The thing is, I see photographers using love is love as a Trojan horse. Like, they think that if a queer couple can only see my portfolio, they will be so in love with my work and they will have no choice but to book me.
Right.
And I have more bad news because, we're not special. There are good photographers everywhere. Why you? Because if we want to build trust, we have to build trust. We have to show genuine understanding. We have to consistently prove that we're friends. And it's not that hard. But even if it was hard, you can do hard things. For fuck's sake, you're a business owner. I'm saying a lot of bad words here. I'm sorry.
You're allowed to swear. Please swear as much as you like.
Okay,
Tim and I we just have a
We're
carte
sailors.
blanche sorry
Yeah.
to our parents.
Yeah.
It's fine.
Sorry, Mom.
Yeah. Sorry, Pop.
But yes, no, you can do
again,
hard things. And I would love to, see more of us, myself included, trying a little bit harder on these hard things. Because we try really hard at a lot of shit. right? We try really hard at a lot of things.
Yeah.
People are flying all over the world to go to conferences, to hear people speak, to hear about how we can make a little bit more money, do more album sales, get hotter clients in our portfolio, whatever it might be, right? People are trying harder
Fill that calendar.
to be cool,
Yeah.
to fill the calendar, but we're not trying hard at like the human side of things always, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. I understand that we're all busy with lots of worries and things to do. And this seems like a lot of work. We don't need more on our plate. Yes. But changing the way we act towards something is not rocket science. It just takes time, practice. Like, remember when you first got your driving license, you'd be so stressed thinking about everything you were doing to drive the car. What does this pedal do? And how do I park? And all of that.
Yeah.
And now you do it without even thinking. So it's the same thing here. You need time to build a new habit. So that's all there is to it. Give yourself time.
I think I totally hear what you're saying on the giving yourself time. And I think a big part of inclusion as a whole, regardless of whether we're talking about, the queer community or, BIPOC, whatever, there are so many layers of inclusion that we need to be considering. And one of the things that I really think is important that could be a really good stepping stone for photographers is actually in language. So it's actually so interesting to me that you have this background in linguistics, because I'm a yapper, okay? So I like words.
That's why we have a podcast.
So I really like words a lot.
You digress.
I digress.
And it's something we've been doing too, is updating the language in our portfolios, in our contracts, especially in our questionnaires, to be more inclusive and thoughtful about the different types of human beings that are hiring us. Like not just bride, groom, but like, even the wedding parties, like brides people, grooms people, like making sure that everyone feels included. And this is something you touch on in your book. I'd love to know just maybe a bit more about how we can do better in terms of language around weddings and around love.
Well, there is definitely a type of language that we can use to include everyone in our conversation. Like, this is something that I say all the time. Imagine a queer couple going through your website. They love you, they like you, they want to hire you. They go to your Get in Touch page. They want to fill the contact form, and they find his name and her name.
Yeah.
What are they going to do? Are they going to call you? Are they going to hire you? I don't think so. So change the wordings and the expressions on your website. Go through all the words that you have in every blog post, in every page. Be careful. Who are you talking to? Are you talking to brides? Are you talking to everyone? Are you talking so obviously to a straight couple? And I want to say something to the listeners. Nothing is wrong with straight couples, with white people. They are amazing people. This is not about them.
Yes.
This is about what photographers do with the audience. So
I also
disclaimer.
think, you don't need to say it, but I will say it. There is enough messaging out there for straight white folks. Like, I think we're good on that. We don't have to say, well, we're including them too. This isn't like not all men situation. We're like, no, you're already included.
Yeah.
It's actually just inherent. It's just built in.
Yes.
I actually took an anti-racism course by a local educator. Her name's Salem Debs.
Okay.
She's phenomenal. And one of the things that I really took away from that is how the assumption is always in whiteness as the default, and how in the wedding community, the assumption is straightness as the default.
Yeah.
Which truthfully, I think is actually really shifting in a very big way. I really feel like, hopefully, maybe it's not just my bubble. We don't live in Alabama, okay? So I actually don't know.
Sorry, Alabama.
I don't know what it feels like for everyone else.
Yeah.
But it feels like to me that the majority of the world is really on a spectrum of queerness, more so than just there are so many more straight
Binary.
people than queer folks. I think if we were all a little bit more honest with ourselves, people would really see that there is this broader spectrum. So even if you are not doing it to be a good friend or intentionally being like, I'm an ally, and I'm going out there and fighting the good fight, it is just a logical move to change your language, because that is representative of the world that we live in.
Yeah.
And I guess one question that I kind of have around websites and all of this, and the terminology that we're using is, what would you say to the photographer who maybe does live in a place that is not as liberal as where we live, and their fear, and I've heard this from other people, their fear of alienating people who are perhaps really religious or very non-queer friendly, and then they see a questionnaire that says, tell me your pronouns, which like my questionnaire says, let me know your, the couple's pronouns, just so I'm not referring to you as not who you are. Speaking personally, even living in the liberal area that we live in, when I first put that in, I was like, this is going to turn some people away. I was like,
so be it.
Literally, so be it. But what would you say to the photographers that are worried that they're going to lose people by being inclusive?
Depends. What kind of people are you losing?
Yeah.
Like the racist, homophobes, transphobes? Fuck them, That's what I say.
Truly.
Yeah.
So the thing is, by being more inclusive, you grow your business. You will have access to a bigger market, yes. But it's not just about that. It's more about, refining your existing client base. Because when you are loud and clear about your values, people who don't align with those values will not get in touch with you. They will, self-check out. And that's great because it's not a loss. And
it's
then
like
the
literally a goal, probably.
Yeah, but then the people who do choose you, they will respect you, trust you, share your vision. So it's not just about growing your business. It's also about how you grow. And the thing is, sharing photos of queer people doesn't make you a queer photographer exclusively, People, maybe they have somebody in the family who is queer and they support you and they will still hire you because they believe in the cause,
Yeah.
People might just be attracted by your value, to your values. So it's not just like, oh, I shoot weddings in Iceland, so just people living in Iceland will hire me. Also, people traveling to Iceland will hire you, right? So
yes, absolutely. I think it goes so much further than just I'm trying to attract, a diverse client base. It's our clients are looking for this. Like Tim and I get inquiries from people that are straight that are saying, just want to make sure that you also shoot queer weddings.
Yeah.
Because they won't hire someone who is exclusionary.
Yeah.
And I respect that entirely. Like, good for you for voting with your dollars, essentially, for the vendors that you want to invest in. It would be a very scary day for you as a wedding, as a client, showing up to your wedding day having no clue what people's values are. I think that would be really wild and a very spooky experience.
That's scarier
being like, do I have one of those cake people that's going to end up in the news for saying I won't make a cake for a queer couple?
God.
That would be would be a bad day for a client. So it's not just necessarily to attract queer clients or diverse clients. It's that's just what people are looking for now. And I think phenomenal. That's wonderful.
On that topic of attracting queer and LGBTQ plus clients, how would someone who's mainly shot cis, gendered white North American, let's say, couples for the most part, if they're new to photography, they want to expand their portfolio to include everyone, what is a way that they could, without having a portfolio, attract and get couples?
Yeah, we all face this challenge at
it's
some
tough,
point, right?
Yeah.
Like, you need clients. To get those clients, you
exactly.
need photos, you don't have the photos.
It's not unique to just shooting LGBTQ plus couples. It's unique to everying.
And do I just go on Instagram and be like, hey, can I have some gays to contact me? It's just me.
I like unicorns.
I'm looking for you. Just put a big rainbow behind a headshot, and you're imagine yourself.
That would probably work. That would work probably for
somebody
a couple,
would definitely come laughing at you for sure. But
but in an authentic way, you want to attract people who are, you want to expand your portfolio and make sure that you're inclusive to everyone. How does someone from scratch
but
start?
Isn't this the same problem that destination wedding photographers
Very
go
true.
through? You did an episode about that, right?
We did, yes.
2 weeks ago. Yep.
Yeah. And it's the same.
So they want clients.
Basically you eventually have to. What we've done is we just bought our way into it.
Yeah.
Literally. I'll just pay people. That's what I'm going to do.
Styled shoots, right?
I'm going to be like, you're cute. Do you want to come over here? We'll do a picture together.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how
Yeah,
I
exactly.
ended up with a slightly more
Yeah.
diverse portfolio, and it's still nowhere near where it needs to be. But I did a model call, and I just said, "Who wants some free photos?" Because this portfolio is
Exactly.
lacking.
Totally.
But you didn't expect paying clients to come running to you when
No.
you don't have photos of destination weddings. Like, it's
No.
the same here. So you can reach out to friends, to local communities, look on Google, ask online, and offer free photos. But then one thing, because then people get these photos, they write these amazing blog posts that nobody reads with 12 photos of queer people, and that's it. They don't do anything else. So, people who want to book you click on more pages.
Right.
And if they don't feel welcome across the board, they're not going to work with you. So these photos need to be spread all over your website, your
Yeah.
social media, everywhere.
Your blog is really good. Speaking of blogs,
Yeah.
your blog is phenomenal. Oh my gosh, I'm really
Thank you.
inspired. I'm in my blogging era right now. I haven't posted anything recently, but I'm just thinking about it.
No, it's rich with tips. Like every blog post, I feel like is as valuable for couples as it is for other photographers looking at them, just to get some ideas about how to
Thank you.
structure your linguistics. Not a surprise to us now that we know that, but they're well thought out, and I feel like every sentence, every paragraph has like tangible things you can take away. Not just like, oh, this was a lovely day, the sun was shining for some reason, even though it was like October, and like they had like a nice cake. Like it was less.
Yeah.
I feel like
I
there's some
think
real meat on
nobody
the bones
gives a
of
shit
these.
about that.
They don't give a
No.
shit. I feel terrible every time I write that. I'm like, I hate this. This is dumb.
You're like, these are just words for Google
This is
to
word
rank
soup.
it so you guys
Yeah.
can look at some pictures and then
yeah,
that's
this is just
fine.
SEO, and
Yes.
I hate it for that reason. But I feel like your blog posts are, like Lindsay said, there's meat on the bones of these
Thank you.
posts. So
And so if you are
done.
listening, I would highly recommend,
Yes.
again, link down in the description, go and check out Martina's website and the blog. Because speaking of trying harder, okay, so it's like actually if I could get like my own personal motto tattooed across my forehead, it would probably be try harder for myself and for all of us. Whenever I'm speaking to newer photographers that are like, how do I build a portfolio? And I was like, so actually it's gonna suck. That's what I'm going to tell you, is that it's going to suck and it's going to be hard. And the reason that it's going to be hard is because it's not so simple as to just say, like I was just joking, oh, well, I just put a call out. I got a couple of people. I did one shoot and now I'm like the go-to queer photographer in the area. That's not really actually how it goes.
No.
You speak about, it's a whole being. It's who you are as a person. It's the language that we use. It's the people we associate with. It's the places that we spend our time volunteering. It's the ways that we engage in our community. So this isn't like a dip a toeing kind of effort here.
yeah,
And I'm not just talking about inclusion and diversity. I'm talking about having a really successful and profitable business. You can never just dip a toe in and be like, I hope it'll work. When we hear from photographers that tell us like, well, I've been at this for a year and it's just not going well. And I ask them what they did. They're like, oh,
I tried once.
I tried one time.
Yeah.
I made this post. Or, to put it in like totally different, just like specific photography terms, photographers will tell me that they're not good at selling mini sessions. Okay. Mini sessions is like a thing that I'm fairly good at. And people will come to you being like, I'm not good at this. I don't know how to sell them.
Yeah.
I posted on my Instagram stories and I got one bite. And I was like, oh, just you did the one time?
Yep.
That was the thing. That was the whole thing. It's such a multifaceted thing that you have to show up for. And I think in order for us to ever show up in any area of our lives, we have to know why we're doing it, right? We have to come back to the values of, well, why does this matter to you? Why do you want to sell minis? Why do you want to have a diverse portfolio? So yeah, how do you feel? What are your thoughts on this? Why do you feel like having a diverse portfolio matters? Why is it a thing that we should all care about? I know our answers, so hopefully you're not seeing this as us being like, this shit doesn't matter. But what would you say to the photographer that's like, I'm already so tired. I believe that this sounds like a thing I should do, but why?
Yeah.
Like, give me some reasons for my own values set for why we should do these things.
Take, I don't know, 1,000 wedding photographers' portfolio just randomly. What do you see? It's the same story repeated over and over. We have young, skinny, wealthy, white, conventionally attractive, straight, cisgender couples. That's all there is to it. It's always the same thing,
Yeah.
And it's like we are stuck in this outdated dimension, this 1950s narrative where the bride has to be elegant, ethereal, and feminine, and the groom is strong, cool, and masculine. And we have bridesmaids and pink silk and whiskey and cigars and dark tones on the other hand. And, honestly, I'm so sick of it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it feels like we are trapped in this narrow idea of what love is like, what love should look like. And we believe that our work will only be successful if it aligns to this idea. So there is a limit, and we keep feeding this narrative more and more content. So we are trapped. But here's the thing, we have a responsibility here because we are the photographers. We are the ones creating the content that shapes how people see the world, what people perceive as ordinary. And yet too often we play it safe and show only one type of couple, the couple that sells, And I'm not even talking about queer people here. This is about all those people who are not young, not skinny, not white, not all of that.
Yeah.
Like, for example, you two, let me ask you two. You and I, we go to many conferences and events about wedding photography every year. When was the last time that you saw on stage a photographer sharing photos of a bald groom?
Oh my gosh. Couldn't even tell you.
Yeah, I would.
Unless
right?
he was like perhaps, the world's most fashionable. Like
Jason
the thing
Statham
is
kind of guy. Yeah.
The work that we see, it is okay, maybe they have this thing that brings them out of the conventionally attractive look, but then they have this thing that brings them up into this
then they
category,
are on Como Lake,
right?
and it's fine.
Yeah,
Yeah.
now it's okay. Okay,
Yeah,
well,
right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
So no, it's true. Like we see so much. And I actually really appreciate this, Martina. It's a really interesting and like very thoughtful perspective of we are informing the industry.
Yeah.
And we forget the power that we have because the work that we're
Yes.
putting out there is what we're telling our clients is cool.
Yeah.
We're telling our clients this is what's cool. They then
Yes,
tell us
and
this
you're
is
not.
what's cool. Yeah. Then they tell us this is what's cool. So then we're constantly chasing our asses being like, okay, well, my clients told me this is what's cool. So I'm going to go and shoot more of that. We go and shoot more of
Yes.
that. Then we post it to show these people.
And outside of that cog of a giant circle of repeating that, there's this industry that's like, if you want to make money, post images like this because this is what sells, like you said.
Yes, it's a trap, and
it is
we
a
are
trap.
feeding the trap,
It's honestly, it's very much reminiscent of like the days when we used to read like magazines. Like when I was younger, I used to be obsessed with like Cosmo Girl, Cosmopolitan, like Elle, like those kinds of magazines. And I don't know if you've read a magazine article from that time period recently with
Horrifying.
the brain you currently have
Dude.
and the experience you currently have. But like the shit that they would tell young girls to how to look, how to act, we all fit into this box. And my guess is that the magazine editors and writers all thought this is what they want to hear, so we'll keep writing it. Because that's what's been
Yes.
selling us magazines for years, so we'll keep writing it.
Yeah.
But then the next generation of girls comes up, reads it, and says, that's what they're telling me I have to do. So
Yeah.
at some point, the narrative has to change.
Yeah.
Someone has to be willing to say, fuck this.
Yeah.
I'm not doing this anymore. And write a different magazine. Start writing some articles that aren't on how to, win a man and how to stay skinny. Like at some point we have to change the narrative. And I feel like, what we're all agreeing on is that it's our responsibility.
Yeah.
And it's a pretty cool responsibility really that we are in the
is.
driver's seat to be able to say we're redefining what's cool.
Yeah.
And that you get to be
Yes.
able to show your clients, looking like all different kinds of people. But your portfolio, and I'm going to keep saying it because your portfolio is incredible.
Very
When
good.
I look at your work, I know how my husband and I would look in it. I know how Tim and his fiance would look in it. And
Totally.
I know how my brother and his partner would look in it. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? I can tell you all the different diversity of, what the world would look like because your color is consistent. The way you shoot is consistent. The people change and their experiences change. But you as a photographer aren't changing. You're not like, oh shit, like... I've got this couple, their body types are this.
You can see your
I'm done
values.
now,
Yeah, you can
know?
see
And
your
we-
values through the images. You can see that you care about people's enjoyment of the day, and you care about their relationship on this like pivotal day in their lives, and it shows. So
I'm going to be so honest with you. I have been absolutely guilty for showing up to a wedding where I felt like this couple didn't try super hard. So I'm going to try less hard also.
yeah, been there.
You know, I have weddings
But I've
that
done
are
that too. You know, I'm also guilty. That's
Sure.
everybody's life. We all make mistakes. It's fine.
Yeah, and it is hard. It's hard creatively to want to show up for people that clearly like photography was a check mark on their list, right?
Yeah.
They were like, well, somebody told me I'd have a photographer, and all we really wanted to do was sign some paperwork and be legally married.
Yeah.
And I guess a question that I do have for you, and maybe this is partially a question that Tim and I were talking about, because Tim does a lot of city hall weddings as well. So Tim does a lot of city hall weddings in this area. He's like the photographer for the city hall in our area. And at city hall in our area,
Very different than City Hall in your area.
it's a very broad and very diverse
is.
clientele.
Yeah.
Versus the venues in our area, they attract a type of person, right? They're like,
So it's kind
Yes.
of great for me selfishly, because couples who book with City Hall, they go through City Hall itself, they go through the chapel that was built there within the City Hall grounds, and they say, I want to get married on this date. And they reach out, and then they have a checkbox where they can say, do you want a photographer? And they check that box. So I get every kind of couple under the sun, which is amazing. I show up, I've never met them. We've maybe communicated a bit on email, but that's about it. Like, I don't know what they look like. I don't know their orientation. I just know their names and the date and the time. And so showing up is like, it's always different. It's always unique. And I get to kind of guide them through that in a nice way, but also discover on the day what makes them comfortable, who they are, what their love story is a little bit, and then create some nice images from that. So it's pretty awesome. I know that your process being that you're the Las Vegas of Europe for destination photography.
Yes.
And that you're even on your blog, like I'll go back to that. It lists all the places you can do a city hall wedding, which are like the beach, this old amazing church that's a UNESCO site. Like you have all these different options of places to get married that are city hall, but not city hall. That's incredible. So I'd love to know, maybe tell our listeners, our viewers, a little bit about how that's unique to your situation in Copenhagen.
It is unique because in a way, you know, it's first of all, it's elopements, so you don't spend with them the whole day. Who wants to be the whole day with you? You know? I wouldn't. So you spend with them only a few hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, whatever it is, and it's just you and them.
Yeah.
Most of the times, no parents, no friends, nothing. And so you build a very solid bond with them because you're just walking around the city, and Copenhagen is fairly small. You can just walk everywhere. So you chat about life and everything, and you know, there's no restaurants to go, nobody's waiting for you, there is no schedule. They are free, completely free to be with you. And that's it's very chill and relaxing. I love it. And then it's always the same location. It's always the same city hall, the same room, the same streets, the same everything, because this is the city, you know, you can't just invent anything. And nobody has a car because this is Europe.
The bikes. That's
I
it.
don't have a car, I bike around, but I
amazing.
can't bring people on my bike, you know, so we just walk.
Yeah.
So you can only go too far, you know. And you know, I love it. I love the connection that I get with people. I love the fact that I'm still texting with some of them. I'm still meeting with some of them.
That's amazing.
If they come back, if I go to their place, you know. And I absolutely love this. Yes.
Amazing. Well, we have some questions from listeners, viewers. We put out a call last week asking anyone and everyone if they have questions for you, Martina. We had a few come back. We kind of answered some of these, but I'd love to know maybe a bit more specifics. The first one is from Native Oak Studios, wants to know, what do you do when you arrive at a session and you aren't feeling inspired?
Wow.
I know.
I never thought about that because I think, no, because, you know, I go to the same place, so I go autopilot.
Right.
I try to focus on people.
Okay.
People are the most important thing in my photos. I don't care about where we are. I don't care about their dress, anything. People. I want to talk to people. I want people to feel relaxed because, you know, people are coming here to Copenhagen. They've never been here. They don't know how wedding works. I know that. I know where to go, which door to knock. I'm the guide.
Yeah.
And if they are freaking out, we don't go anywhere.
Right. Yeah.
So I'm also like a therapist at
feel
weddings.
that.
So I talk a lot about even taking the camera off the bag. So that's what I do. And then I just focus on that. So I guess, yeah.
So it sounds like you're less like looking for inspiration outside of what's happening. Like you're just more reacting to the moment and kind of
Yes.
catering to your couple. That's awesome. That's something we could all do a bit better. Just like get out of our heads in terms of, what's expected of me versus what's happening in front of me and how do I photograph in the best way. Chris Denner, friend of the show, friend of yours, he wanted to know, and we've answered this a bit as well, but what type of wedding photography trend needs to get in the fucking bin, get set on fire, and then buried?
I love Chris.
I think we talked about the idea
I love
of this.
Chris too.
We talked about the
And,
justification of weddings, how it's always like soft female and then strong male with, cigars
Yeah.
and dark tones and then pretty pink. Like that's
Chris calls it the sea of sameness, which I'm obsessed with.
But
yeah.
we'd love to know from
Yeah.
your perspective, what specifically, whether it's a trend or
Well, today is the direct flash, the
okay.
tilt horizon, and this
The blurry-
black and white thing that
Yeah.
looks very voguey. And but I think the things that annoys me the most is motion blur.
Okay.
Motion blur for no reason. You
Yes.
know, when it's not needed.
Yeah.
You're like, they're not
It makes
moving.
no
You
sense.
literally moved the camera to make it look like they were moving. Why?
Yeah,
Why
they're
are
just
we doing
standing
that?
in front of you. They're not
Yes.
moving.
It always reminds me of like, it makes me think of like, oh, that was the last photo that this photographer took before they fell into the sea. Like,
Yeah.
and then they're in the ocean. Like, oh, cool, you saved the camera in that last frame. Incredible. And then our last response was from Jen from Queer Photo, at Queer Photo. She said, "Oh my God, I'm so excited." So you have a fan in North America who's just excited to be here and to say welcome. So
We're a big fan of Queer Photos also. She's the
wonderful.
best.
Yeah, she's amazing.
Thank you.
We have a few more questions for you here. Just gonna go to my list of things.
Also, sorry for everybody watching,
Gear.
and also Martina. I have something in my eye that is
Okay.
like, I feel like I'm going blind currently. Like you're like,
It's
no.
okay.
I'm like just over here dying. You know what I think it is? I used a new sunscreen spray this morning. I don't know why I
Oh.
did. There's literally no
Okay.
sun out. But,
UV is important. You gotta protect yourself.
But yeah, UV happens, and now I'm like, I'm happy we're talking about us not judging people for their appearances because I currently look like I have one eye that works. So sorry to everybody who's been watching me. I'm not crying. Well, I am, but for the different reasons.
Not for emotional reasons, for
Yes.
physical.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Because you care too much about your skin.
I do really
Yeah.
care about my skin. Yeah.
People want to know, and it's one of the annoying things about this podcast and the internet as a whole, gear. We don't like talking about gear, but I feel like people want to know what you shoot on. So, Martina, what are you shooting on these days?
Yeah, I don't like to talk about gear either. I don't know the name of my camera. It's a Sony.
Nice. Okay.
Okay, we love
And,
this.
Sony fan.
Honestly, you just went up
Yeah.
5 points in my books for just being like, I literally don't know. I
Don't
just
care.
have a camera and I pointed
Yeah,
at people.
it works.
I charge the
It does
batteries.
the job.
Yeah.
But I'm gonna show off here. I bought the new Sony lens, the 2870 f2.
Dude.
Oh wow!
It's a good one.
And yeah, I've done a wedding the other day with that one, and I'm so amazed because it's so dark everywhere here.
Yes.
So-
You need that f2. You need that fast lens.
Yes.
And also it's like,
Yeah.
it's a lot lighter than the competitors out there. Canon has one, but it's the size of a house and the
Yeah.
cost of
Tim
a
has
small
that
boat.
28 to 70. I picked it up and I was like, "How are you shooting on this?"
I
It's
sold
like-
it. I shot
Oh,
2
yeah?
weddings and I sold it. So
It
yeah,
was
no.
so heavy,
It's a
unbelievably
nightmare.
heavy.
But no, I'm very happy for you. Congratulations, because that's literally the only lens you need. So that answers the second question, what lens? But that's great. Amazing. And then we'd love to know, Martina, before we wrap up, are there any plugs, anything you want the world to know about you, about your work, about how they can be better photographers?
Yes, there is one thing.
Please.
And just to closure for this episode, and because it's we're recording in January 2025.
Yes.
And so if you want to work with diverse people, minorities, and all of that, please show support, because people are erasing us everywhere. And if you want to be a friend, you have to be a friend. You have to act like one. So what do friends do? They listen, they support, they speak out when somebody calls you names. They stand up when you're being mistreated. Friends don't tolerate violence against you, and they certainly do not vote for parties that want to strip away your human rights. And with that, I am done.
You know what, Martina? I appreciate you saying that so much. One of the things that we hear probably too often is that photography is not political and business is not political. It couldn't be further from the truth. Of course, it's political. Being a human being is political. It might not. The only people that I think feel like it's not political are the people whose rights aren't being taken from them every single day, and who are not in a position of risk. But
I also hear this a lot. We shouldn't get political. We shouldn't even talk about inclusion if we want to be equal. We should welcome everyone. Everybody matters the same way. And I understand this is coming from a place of goodwill, because we want to avoid conflict in photography. But for minorities, it feels like you're saying, I don't see you. I don't see your struggles. I don't see your challenges. I don't see you being bullied. I don't see you being called names. I don't see you having it worse than me, because my life has never been impacted by who I am, what I look like, whom I love. I don't know what that means. And yet you want to pay me to shoot, my love story, the love story that you're not helping to exist.
Yeah.
So maybe we should all reconsider everything. And again, I always say this topic is discomforting because we want to change things.
Yeah.
So we can't just, sit on our couch and pretend that others do the job. We have to.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well
Thank you
said.
so much, Martina. And, your social presence is a light. I absolutely love seeing your work and seeing the stories that you're sharing, even when they are challenging narratives, and you're bringing up topics that are really challenging. Obviously, January 2025, it's not the beginning of a rough point. We've been in a rough point for a while, but it is.
Yeah.
We were talking about this actually at the Imagine dinner about when we were just in Lisbon, about being in Canada and so close to the border, of how quickly we see a change in the things that people say, the way people act. Just yesterday, there was a group of people masked in our town, holding a sign that said mass deportation now, which is not a thing I've ever seen in my entire existence living here. And as vehemently as that, loud, hopefully I feel like it's a minority group of people start speaking up loudly, we need to be even louder on our platforms and in our communities, in vocal support of the exact opposite of that narrative, right? So we really appreciate you being here. We appreciate your time so much, and thank you for what you do. It is scary, I think, for photographers, for human beings as a whole, to learn something new and to try something different. And a lot of the time, the best way for us to do that is just by listening to people in the communities that are being fucked with day after day. But it doesn't come without a burden to you to be constantly sharing these things. So we really do appreciate the time.
Thank
and the
you for
energy that
giving
you've
me
shared.
the time and the place to talk about this.
It's our pleasure.
All
always.
the links for all the things that you do and you share and you sell will be below in the description of this episode. Martina, thank you so much for being here. Really appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
We appreciate you so much. And I can't wait to see you soon. Hopefully, fingers crossed, sooner than later.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Yes. Okay.
Okay,
Looking forward
signing
as
off.
well. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Ciao. Bye.